You want to hear that story? All right, for Stacks and them, I was about to buy Stacks to give Max and Melly a whole brownstone in New Jersey.
No disrespect to Jim Jones. Fifth had me in Battery Park. I could walk out that motherfucker barefoot. Be in position. Rest in peace of Stack, but Stack got killed in the project report.
Yeah.
God planned for you to come here and spaz on y'all niggas.
Jim Jones did more than just talk. He blew up. The moment he uttered Tony Yayo's name during his appearance on Memphis Bleek's podcast, the entire atmosphere changed. In a matter of seconds, a lighthearted rap conversation turned into an intense one. Jim's voice was so full of frustration that it sounded like years' worth of pent-up energy finally exploding. It wasn't just any heat either. This had profound roots that were ingrained in the history of New York rap. Ego was not the issue here. Legacy, loyalty, treachery, and unhealed scars were all at play here. You had to go back through years of covert exchanges, coded interviews, and alliances that sustained this Cold War in order to comprehend why it became this genuine. At first, Jim made an effort to keep things lighthearted by boasting about his tools. His global reach, his grinder, and the fact that he can move without a cosign. However, there was shade underneath the flex. He made a comparison between Jay-Z's treatment of his people and the way 50 Cent pulls him out on stage. Bleek isn't seen while Ho and Beyonce are on tour. Jim's voice broke through the microphone. It's not his tour, but hers. He wasn't merely talking. He was discussing hierarchy, respect, and who actually leads their squad when the spotlight is on. The moment that brought everything together then arrived. That single tale from the past. Jim recalls a mutual acquaintance telling him, "You don't have to worry about anything. You received 50. 50 does more for his people than Jay-Z does." For years, that remark stayed with him, influencing his perspective on loyalty in this field. It has now come full circle because 50 developed an army while Jay-Z built an empire. And it was just that difference that started this whole chain of events. The absurd thing is that everything refers back to Memphis Bleek, Jay-Z's day one, and the first Rock a Soldier, a man. After Tony Yo made disparaging remarks about Hogg on Shannon Shaw's podcast, Bleek's name was brought up even though he didn't initiate the dispute. Using Bleek as an example, Yayo said that Jay doesn't watch out for his people the way 50 does. This struck a chord with people all around the culture because Bleek is more than just an artist working under Jay. He is part of his family. Therefore, it is no longer business when someone challenges that loyalty. It's intimate. The industry was rocked by Yo's single comment that Jay doesn't look after his personnel the way 50 looks after me. The change was immediately apparent to fans. Rap talk wasn't all that this was. It concerned who truly supports their people and whose fame wanes. And Bleek finds that kind of conversation to be quite hurtful. He and Hull have a connection that extends outside the studio. It is based on fraternity, blood, and history. But there's no turning back once that allegiance is publicly questioned. Now that the tension is public knowledge, it will only get hotter. Memphis Bleek didn't avoid the smoke as he arrived on Drink Champs. He managed it expertly. Rather than retaliating, he calmly and confidently addressed Tony Yo's remark, reminding everyone that loyalty isn't about presence, money, or who buys what. It's about respect, love, and remaining steadfast when no one else is around. But you could tell that Bleek hit a nerve when he pointed out that Jay-Z was being used as an example by someone else. He maintained his composure. Yes, but there's a lot of attention simmering beneath the surface of that cold tone. Because although most people believe the rivalry stopped there, it actually sparked a far deeper issue. Something connected to history, heartache, and an agony that the streets would never forget. You see, this whole situation wasn't solely the result of financial loyalty or record deals. It resulted from a loss, an actual loss, the kind from which you never fully recover. One of New York's most promising up-and-coming talents, Stacked Bundles, was at the heart of it all. Stack was more than simply a rapper.
Something Tony Yayo said, "Hope don't look out for me like 50 look out for L."
Oh, word, he said that?
I just want to clear that up. Hope don't have to. You know what I mean? I'm chewing a lie on my own. If Hope look out, I'm telling you, I'll be up there. So when y'all see me out here, that's the Blizzard budget. But back to you, I'm sorry for cutting you off. I just want to let niggas know Hope don't have to.
He was a force. Everything about him, including his voice, intensity, and uniqueness, shouted next up. Stack was bound to become the next big thing from Queens under Jim Jonesy's Bird Gang. But tragedy happened before he could reach that level. The city is still devastated by the loss of Stack Bundles, who was shot and killed in his own neighborhood. It was Tony Yo who revived that wound years later. Mathhofer discussed Stack's passing on his podcast, Kay implying that Jim Jones might have done more to shield him, possibly even keeping him off the streets where he was taken. Those weren't only empty words. Scars were being torn apart once more. For Jim, that wasn't just a casual jab. It was intimate. He cherished Stack. He had faith in him. And it seemed weird to hear someone say he failed him. That crosses into unplayable territory. Loss, commitment, and legacy. In hip-hop, there are 3 characteristics that determine who you are, particularly with regard to those you used to call family. This beef feels different because of this. It goes beyond podcast drama and rap discussion. It's suffering masquerading as pride. Loyalty disputes that are actually old wounds, although what Yo said might have sounded like just another soundbite. Jim found it to be a memory he would never be able to get rid of. Both the streets and the people who lost a loved one there never forget. This has nothing to do with clout in the mall or renown. This is about loyalty that is constantly being put to the test years later, and a ghost that never went away. Jim Jones's supporters have consistently maintained that he never deserted Stack Bundles. Not once, Jim allegedly exerted every effort to remove Stack from the streets. He provided him with actual industry prospects, cash assistance, and studio time. He did more than merely co-sign Stack. He made an effort to lead him. However, Stax maintains ties to the same streets that influenced him, just like many talented musicians from the trenches. They were the same ones that served as the inspiration for his songs, but they were also dangerous. Fans have been debating whether Jim leveraged Stack's name to gain influence for years. Jim, however, has consistently resisted, claiming that it was never about business. It was about brotherhood, love, and mentoring. Jim has talked about Stack's death with unfiltered passion in numerous interviews, acknowledging that it still pains him. Tony Yo was therefore struck in a place that no diss track could reach when he chose to speak on Stack's name, because Stack was more than just an artist to him. He was family. Additionally, you don't cross that boundary when discussing relatives. Thus, the silence was abruptly broken when Jim and Memphis Bleek sat down and Stack's name was mentioned. The room's energy changed. Jim's voice became piercing, his patience gave out, and all of his pent-up feelings were evident. He took off in a sincere manner rather than carelessly. Jim chastised Tony directly for discussing a topic he had not experienced, aiming that people enjoy altering history to get more views and clicks. No one in his circle is having any difficulties, he claimed. Everybody eats. Everybody has been taken care of. Jim reminded the world that he has been the one to place individuals in positions to succeed, and his voice cracked with equal parts pride and rage. However, it was clear that this was not your typical podcast moment. It was intimate. In that moment, years of loss, guilt, and loyalty came crashing together. To be fair, Tony didn't intend for his initial statement to be a direct jab at Jim's wealth or notoriety. The individuals surrounding him were more important. Tony hinted that although Jims are wealthy, his team doesn't always feel the same way. Jim, however, turned it, defending not only his movement, but also himself, rather than accepting it as criticism. He reiterated that he doesn't look for approval or try to fill the coffers of other people. He answered, "I do what I do. I don't keep an eye on other people's finances." What began as a discussion on loyalty between two men formed by pride, sphoro, and legacy descended into a full-fledged emotional outburst. And Tony responded silently, just when supporters were beginning to lose interest. He didn't rant or make a disparaging remark. Rather, he shared a mysterious picture that alluded to Max B.
The problem is, when she was on the show, she had said that she had heard about you wasn't giving Stack money, but people don't know that when Stack asked you for the bread, you were going to the bank. I think the bank was closed. Something happened because we invited him to. I remember being there, and you was going to give him
more money after the money he spent because we was on tour. He like, geez, I spent all that tour money, geez, on Pop. I'm bugging. Whatever he did, brought another Porsche, BMW. He like, yo, Pop, geez, you said closed mouth don't get fed, geez, I'm Pop, geez, I'm hurting.
It's a fact.
And when I told him, I said, yo, go get 25 grand from the bank tomorrow. He like, oh, yo, what's up with that Wrangler truck? I'm like, I left that shit in Brooklyn. I don't even want that shit. I don't even know what block it's on. Matter of fact, it's by the car shop where I got the Maserati from. He like, you let me get that, G's. I'm like, go take it. You probably got to get a new key. He like, oh, I'm going to go get that tomorrow, G's. You different, G's. And we all know the rest of the story.
Why do you think that people have this misconception of what happened? Why do you think even her? Why do you think that, where did that come from?
Nobody likes to hear the truth.
Because we were there. Bino get mad all the time, and he gets offended. And he was one of the people that called me. He was like, "That's not true." They think that what they think is that Stack asked you, and he told you he wanted to leave. They said that Stack told you he wanted to leave, he wanted to move, and you didn't move him out. But that's not true.
You want to hear that story? All right, for Stacks, I was about to buy Stacks to give Max and Melly a whole brownstone in New Jersey. None of them wanted to leave the hood. And I was not about to waste my money. And I was what I offered them. I went shopping for the shit and all that type of thing.
Yeah, we remember that, like Bass. We remember that. We shot the Bass. I remember the conversation.
And I'm like, yo, you fucking, you want to, like, you could go to the hood every day, but you're going to be living in Jersey. Like, you're going to be living better than, like, and you don't have to worry about paying for no rent or nothing like that. I'm just trying to get you this out the hood. Melly too. Melly ended up getting shot, right? Like none of these would listen, and everything that happened that can happen in the hood end up happening and shit like that. You know what I mean? But everything to try to protect them for what I know could have happened to them, I tried. You heard? From getting all of these cars, getting all these everything. You can imagine everything. Private jets to Miami, hundreds of thousands in one weekend, 2 tour buses at Atlanta. Like, cannot front on how I had my boys moving. And I'm only talking about this because you was there. And you and Stacks were best friends. Bino, a couple others and like that. Other than I don't even talk to people about Stacks and what went on. But we was sending it out. It was not on our level when we was moving.
A former friend of Jim Jones has turned into a foe. The internet was set on fire by that one message alone. Because everything in this story has a connection. Loss, loyalty, treachery, and the specter of the past that never went away haunt the biggest personalities in hip-hop. Yes, Tony didn't even type a complete sentence in that message. It stated it all. It only needs a single image. The shade was immediately noticed by fans, who described it as a silent but lethal shot directed directly at Jim. The internet was in disarray in a matter of minutes. Feeds went haywire. Timelines exploded. Comment sections became virtual battlegrounds. While some stood with Tony, saying he simply uttered what everyone else was too afraid to say, the other half of the crowd supported Jim, stating his commitment had been unwavering from the beginning. A perfect storm occurred. In real time, pride, history, and old scars collide. The majority of folks were unaware that this was more than a simple back and forth. It revealed decades of unsaid conflict ingrained in the hip-hop culture of New York. They don't perish because of those rivalries. They simply remained silent, hoping to be awakened by the wrong name. And that name was Stacked Bundles this time. A specter that still hangs over every discussion. Memphis Bleek compared being in the midst of all of this to witnessing the reenactment of hip-hop history. A casual podcast discussion on loyalty descended into a cultural uproar, a reminder of the intensely intimate nature of this game. Numbers and streams are still less important than respect and legacy. Furthermore, it is never just a matter of right or wrong when the past is brought back into the spotlight. It concerns the price of loyalty in the face of global scrutiny. One thing is evident at the end of the day: the past is never truly buried in hip-hop. It simply awaits the next drop of the beat. This tale is still developing, and the next episode is approaching. So please make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below.